So up to here, you've heard of CDE a couple of times, but this is the time that we talk about that more precisely. So without it, there's no order or reliability in the data flow. First of all, what is CDE? Actually, CDE is Common Data Environment that you can see in here. So it's a kind of central space that all of the models, drawings, documents, reports, and files of the project will be saved in there, and they will be shared among teams. So let's assume that we have a big project with different teams around the world. So if each team actually saves their files, for example, separately, and they will send them by email, for sure after a while all of the versions will be wrong and the decisions will be made mistakenly. So CDE is here to prevent these mistakes. So according to standard ISO 19650, the way of the data has 4 steps. Each file starts to work from the first step, and step by step will be continued to the final step. So let's check them with each other. So the first one is work in progress, or WIP. This is the same space, the personal space for each team. Each team, like architectural team, structural team, or mechanical team, will work in their actually own spaces. So here, there's no need that the other teams check the, for example, files related to the other teams, because maybe the files are not complete and they are getting edited. So in this step, the focus is just on the development of the files, not sharing them. Each team has its own folder and just its own members have access to them. So the goal is to ideas, changes, or other things are done without any kind of worrying or concern about, for example, the judgment of the other people. For example, MEP team has designed the pipe route, but it's not shared with the structural team. So the model should stay in this step that is completed. So the second one is shared. So when files actually in WIP get to kind of reliable step, they will go to shared. So this is the place that the models will be shared among teams that actually coordinations are done. So in fact, shared actually is the balance point among teams. They are done for some processing like clash detection or actually qualitative analysis and coordinations among disciplines. And they will be sent to them actually. So this part is really sensitive because if the discipline and controlling of the version is not done completely, maybe a team files with older file and makes a big mistake among all of the teams. So for example, structural model has published the second version, but its architectural team is working with the first one. So this is the place that importance of CDE is completely clear. So when model gets confirmed, it goes for publishing. So this is the part that is for final models that they are ready to be used for decisions, constructions, actually cost estimation or delivery to the client. So actually on each model before getting to this step, I should actually pass QC and QA. So publish means the final version of the file, and that is actually point. Anything else is not valid. So the last step is archive. So actually here just files are kept and nobody should actually edit or delete anything in here. All of the final files are archived in here that later any changes or decisions could be traced in here. So in big projects, this part is really vital, and maybe many years later, maybe they are really important to be checked, and we have to check that how the decisions have got made. So right now you got familiar with parts of CDE. Now let's check about the platforms and softwares of CDE in here. So to do this structure, actually we have different platforms that each one has its own features. So I've just set some famous ones in here. Of course, we cannot say that they are the best. And actually selecting them depends on actually teams and goals. So if your project is international and every team is working by Revit, ACC, or actually BIM 360. They are the best. Or if models come from different softwares, actually Trimble Connect is good. Or if you have governmental projects with a lot of documents, Econex is perfect. So who should manage CDE? So here is a place that information manager will be entered. So according to ISO 19650, the existence of actually information manager is vital. That is the person who manages everything related to CDE about, for example, some confirmation of the files, checking the files, and actually keeping the history of changes. So depending on actually the structure of the project, we have two forms. So in large projects, actually usually client or consultant will define a kind of information manager separately. So in this form, BIM manager won't enter directly to the details of the CDE, but actually it has supervisory and actually strategic DUD. I mean, BIM manager will define the general way of the management of the information, that what data must be produced with what formats and what level of the details and what time they must be delivered. So information manager actually should get sure that all of this data is based on DBP and ISO 19650 and they're saved in CD controlled and they must be published. So BIM manager will set the sessions of the coordination of the information that they will get the reports from information manager. And then finally it will check the accuracy of the files. So the second form actually in here, if the project doesn't have information manager. So in smaller projects, usually we don't have information manager, and BIM manager will be responsible for CDE. Here, actually, BIM manager will be more technical. So in fact, it itself should set the names and structures of the files, and it has to define the users access levels, the processing of the confirmation and publishing the folders, and it has to get sure about the updating of the files every day. So, and finally, it has to give the report of the CDE to client. In fact, a manager not only will set the strategy, but also it will execute this strategy. So actually, it has to have a kind of technical knowing about CDE and comprehension of the management about all of the project. So in this part, we understood that CDE is not a simple storage space, and it is the core of the information system. That all of the project will be based on that when actually the structure of that will be designed well, everything will be clear and reliable. So actually in the projects that they have information manager, actually BIM manager should ensure that all of the management of the data will be actually the same with project management objectives. So actually, and when we don't have information manager in projects, a BIM manager should actually do all of these things about the design of the teams and teaching of the teams completely. So finally, the difference between a kind of successful and unsuccessful project will be in management of CDE. If CDE works well, everything will be okay.